Ok, donc bonjour. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est le mercredi 11 novembre. Hein. Donc commençons avec un petit un poll. Hein. Comment ça va? Comment ça va? Ok, un petit sondage. Comment ça va? Ça va. Bof, ça va. Ou ça ne va pas. Ou ça va bien. Ouais. Comment ça va aujourd'hui? Tu vas bien? Moi, ça va. Moi, ça va. Et on attend encore 3 personnes. Still waiting on 3 folks. All right, 2 more maybe? Ça va? Comment ça va? Comment ça va? Ça va. Ça va. Ça ne va pas. Ça va bien. Ok. Ok. Ça va. Ça va. Ou ça va bien. Ok. Ça ne va pas. Ça va. Ok. It's okay. It's okay if you're not doing well today. That happens. That happens. That's okay. Ok. Donc bonjour. Bonjour. Bienvenue. Bienvenue. Donc ensuite, nous allons parler du logistique du cours, là, tout de suite. There's quite a bit of information that I'm going to kind of give you, and I hope you have questions. The last class didn't have many questions, and I think they're still kind of processing all the information. That's okay. That's okay. So if you have questions for me, awesome. If you don't, that's okay. We can come back to it tomorrow. And then I'd love to review comment se présenter. We didn't have time for these last two things, but maybe we will today in this class. Donc, pour ce cours, Canvas nous servira de siège. Là, vous trouverez les devoirs, l'agenda du jour, les liens Zoom, les messages, les notes. So basically what I'm saying here is Canvas is our home. Canvas is really our home base. So on our Canvas page, you'll find all kinds of really great stuff. Most importantly, the calendar. So I really want to encourage you all to use the calendar. I hope your other teachers are using it. I know I've gotten to use it a lot. And what I want to show you is I'm using the agenda view. So maybe you're using the month view, maybe you're using the week view, right? It might look different for you. I like the agenda view because it's a little less overwhelming. But I want you to know, okay, so here's yesterday's class and there's the recording. So you can always go to the previous classes and see the recording, okay? So I want you to know that that's there. And then, for example, today, here's today's class. And then there's a link that we'll talk about in a moment. There's a link to the Zoom right here. All right. And then student hours. So if you want to sign up for student hours. So once again, Canvas is kind of the hub. I'll also be sending y'all messages through Canvas. So I sent a message yesterday after class. And so I hope you're checking your messages there. If you want to get in touch with me, that's a great way to get in touch with me, is to send me a message through Canvas. Yeah. Grades. Canvas grades will be a little different than PowerSchool grades. Your grade in Canvas might look a little bit higher than your grade in PowerSchool, okay? Because PowerSchool is weighted, and I'll talk about the weighting of different assignments in a moment. But essentially, PowerSchool grade is going to be the one to look at if you want to look at your total grade. Yeah. So what to expect? So here, I just wanted to lay out really clearly, okay, this is what I'm committing to. I am your teacher and I will do this, this, and this. And I really want to help you succeed. And this is what I'm going to do to help make that happen. And then what am I asking for you, right? So I commit to updating Canvas calendar events, assignments, and grades regularly. I might slip from time to time, but I'm going to do my best, all right? I'm going to really, really do my best to keep up with that. I want to organize the class as clear as possible. This is really tough. I really feel for y'all. Virtual learning is really, really tough. And it's our job as your teachers to make it as simple as possible to understand what's going on. So that's our job, as clear and easy to follow as possible. So if something isn't clear, please reach out. Chances are, if you have a question, somebody else probably has the same question. I'm going to strive to be flexible and understanding. Stuff happens, right? This is a really tough time emotionally for a lot of people, and I get that. I'm feeling that too. So I really want to meet you halfway, and I really want to help you out. As teachers, we love to put in those good grades. We love to put in complete grades. It's hard for us when grades aren't complete or assignments aren't submitted. We really want you to succeed, all right? I don't think we say that enough. We're here for you to succeed. We really want that to happen. And we will work with you to make that happen, all right? And I'm gonna work, I don't know if I can make it fun. I'm gonna try to make it fun. I don't think I'm always very good at that. But I want it to be, at the very least, I want it to be meaningful. All right. And by that, I mean, I want this class to mean something to you, right? So maybe for you, you know, biology is really powerful for you and you really care about that, or politics, or English, right? Like reading or something, or PE. And so I think when we feel like something's meaningful like that, we learn better. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce you to so many different things in French, you know, whether it's French music, French culture, French language, expression in French, French politics, even if you want, you know, to help you engage with the class, to help you feel like it's meaningful, because I think we learn better that way. So I'll do my best, right? And this is just, these are patterns that I've seen with quarter one. I taught French 3 and French 4, and these were some things that students did that helped them be successful in the class. So checking Canvas daily-ish, you know, daily might be a lot for y'all, but I hope your other classes are using Canvas too, so it's all kind of consolidated. But checking Canvas, all right. Taking responsibility for completing their classwork. All right, handing it in on time and correctly. So on time, we can be flexible with that, right? Stuff comes up. And this is a really hard time, and a lot of people are working in addition to school and are babysitting, or maybe you're just having a hard time, and that's okay, right? So on time is not as important as it might be normally. Correctly, in French, I'm not going to ask you to be perfect. What we're asking for is just, can you do this thing? Have you mastered more or less how to do this? Does that mean it's going to be perfect? No. So I'm not going to be asking for perfection in French. Really, I'm going to be focusing on, can you do the thing? And in that vein, I really want to ask y'all to communicate with me when you have a question or you need help or you're just having a hard time. I really, really want to encourage you to advocate for yourselves in all your classes, right? So like I keep saying, this is a tough time, and it never hurts to reach out and just let your teachers know, hey, I'm just having a hard time. And you don't have to explain it, right? I'm not going to ask for details or anything, but just to let me know, like, hey, things are just kind of tough right now. That's okay. That's really, really important, though, to reach out. It really helps us. Or if you have a question, if you want to talk French. And then just showing up and giving it your best. That's all we could ever ask for as your teachers, is that you give it your best. That's all we can do as your teachers, is our best, right? So we would ask that of you. All right. I'm going to go through a last little chunk, and then I'll make some time for questions. So if you go to the course on Canvas, there's class overview. Okay, and the class overview has really great information. So it gives you a general idea of what to learn, what you're going to be learning in French 2. And this is a rough outline of the class. So these are the things that we'll be learning this year. So not just quarter 2, but also quarter 3 and 4. You know, who knows what semester 2 is going to look like, but all right. So you'll be learning all these things in French. And at the end of the year, I'll ask you to kind of reflect on that. Like, whoa, you didn't know how to do this in French in November. Okay, but now you do. And if you look at the class overview, there's a lot more information in there too. And here we talk about interpretive, presentational, interpersonal, and knowledge of language and culture. I'll come back to this. This is a lot of information. I don't expect you to understand this, right? I don't expect you to just memorize all this stuff, but I want you to know that it's here. If you are looking for information, if you're looking to better understand these ideas, it's right here. And whether you're with Madame Perez learning French, or with me, or you're with any other teacher learning Spanish, or Mandarin, or SLA, these are things that you'll work on, right? These are skills that you're cultivating in the language. And I'll talk about that more in a second. Just kind of set that aside for a moment. I just wanted to talk about grading. So 5% of your total grade is going to be practice. And these are little assignments we'll be doing in Canvas. Quick multiple choice questions, fill in the blank, things like that, to help you get a handle on the language. I'm not like a bodybuilder or super strong or anything, but I think about it kind of like lifting weights, right? So if you are an athlete and you're training your body, the more you practice, the better you get. The more you lift, the stronger you get. And languages, it's the same way. All there is to a language is really like getting in enough practice that you recognize the patterns and you get really good at like reproducing the patterns basically. And so that kind of work we'll be doing in class on Canvas. We'll be doing a lot of them. So there will be a lot of little assignments like that we'll all do in class, all right? But just so you know, it's only 5% of your grade, all right? So it's more for you to master the material than it is to like get a grade. And then knowledge of language and culture is, if we're talking about French-speaking countries outside of Europe, right? For example, that would be a cultural comment, or French music, or French politics. We could have this conversation in English, right? But it's still talking about culture. If we're talking about how the French language works, how to ask questions, how to use the past tense, how to use prepositions, that's knowledge of language, right? Learning those grammar points. So that's about 15%. And then the biggest chunk is summative. And you may have heard this in your other classes, summative versus formative. So formative is that practice. That's 20% of your grade in your classes right now. Formative is just that practice, those reps. And then 80% is summative. And summative means, all right, like showing you've mastered it, showing you know these things. So that can be in this class, it can be interpretive, presentational, or interpersonal. So that brings us back to this part, right? And so you don't have to memorize these things, but this is information that might be helpful if you want to learn more about what these words mean. Interpretive is basically just reading and understanding, or listening and understanding. So if we do an ed puzzle and I ask y'all to watch a video in French and you're kind of answering some simple questions, that's interpretive. You're learning to better understand French. If we're doing a little reading, right, like a mini article, and we're kind of breaking down the different words and understanding what the article is saying, that's interpretive. Interpersonal is just a conversation, right? And I'm going to try to incorporate text messages and stuff like that. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet in a classroom setting. But basically like that free dynamic conversation, right? And that's just like basically that back and forth, right? Where you're not planning to say anything, but you're kind of responding to what somebody's saying. That's interpersonal. And listening to them too. Presentational, this isn't giving a presentation on your dog. It could be, it totally could be, but it could also be something as simple as saying your age. Okay, quel âge as-tu? J'ai 33 ans, right? You're presenting information that you have. Je m'appelle Ben. That's presentational, okay? So yeah. So just to break that down, to give you a really clear idea of how the grade breaks down, and then generally what we'll be doing in class and how I'll be doing it in Canvas. So that's a ton of information. I just gave you all a lot of information between yesterday and today. So I want to pause recording and give you a space to ask some questions. I'll go ahead and start recording again, and I'll ask you to take a moment to fill out this survey. All right, sondage. So if you go to the calendar and you go to today's class, sondage, survey, sondage. If you click on that, you get a survey that looks like this. All right. And I have some answers from last class, and I look forward to answers for this class. I especially look forward to these answers. There were some pretty interesting ones from last class. But just to help me get to know you a little bit better, you know, maybe your first name is different from what it looks like in PowerSchool, et cetera, et cetera. So this is good stuff. So please take a moment to fill this out. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then I'll check in and see if you need more time. If you need more time, that's okay. And yeah. All right, so what were some answers? So most people said to go invisible and to fly. Like that was clearly like the far and away the most popular answer between this hour and then first hour French 2. Be mega smart, super strong. Sleep whenever I want to. Interesting. Oh, okay, okay. I like that. So maybe you're struggling with insomnia, but also like, oh, it's 8 a.m. I can just go to bed. I don't have to worry about work or class or anything. And this one was wild. This was from last class. Like I said, world shattering, the power to make anyone do whatever I say. Changing the past, that's bananas. Like that's wild. Shape shifting, that's a new one. That's cool. I like that. I hadn't seen that one. I like that one a lot. Like Beast Boy or Mystique. To stop time, I like that. Yeah. I watched Charmed, the new version of Charmed, and stopping time is Mel's ability. Open portals. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's interesting. Teleport to other realities. Whoa. Never have to sleep. Yeah, that would be interesting to never have to sleep. And then last class, they said I would be like Raven from Teen Titans. Yeah, Raven's pretty cool. Teleport to other realities. Oh, that's wild. Like dimensions and realities. Huh. These are pretty impressive abilities y'all thought of. I like it. I like it. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to do that. And I look forward to reading your answers more in detail. Let's review a little bit. Se présenter. Let's review. Comment se présenter? Donc, comment est-ce qu'on se présente en français? Quels sont des mots qu'on pourrait utiliser en français pour se présenter? Donc, how might we go about introducing ourselves in French? What are some words we might use? If you want to send them in the chat, or you can speak up, either way. Okay, bien. We're feeling a little rusty. It's all good. It's all good. So se présenter. So here we have this dialogue. I'm not going to ask y'all to volunteer to do that again. I'm not going to go through it necessarily, but let's do some pronunciation work. So at home, if you could practice, how do we greet people? So salut, 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 bonjour, bonjour. Bonjour is going to be a little more formal. Okay. And for bonjour, it helps to make an O shape with your mouth. I'll talk about the mouth in just a moment. Bonjour. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Je m'appelle Ben. Je m'appelle. Je m'appelle. Okay. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? So somebody yesterday in class asked, okay, well, what kind of French are you teaching us? And I said, oh, that's a really great question. I'm teaching y'all Parisian French because that's what I know. But that doesn't mean French from the south of France is wrong. That doesn't mean French spoken in Haiti is wrong or incorrect. I hadn't thought about it, but Ms. Punzel talked to me yesterday and said, oh, well, in English, we have the same thing. So I have a Californian accent. I don't think about it that way, but I do. Y'all might have Wisconsin accents. And so if I were going to try to speak from Wisconsin, I'd speak kind of like this, don't ya know? And if I were trying to be British, I would pronounce every single syllable and every letter just as the Queen intended. Right? So in English too, we have many different accents and they're all legitimate. In French, I'm gonna try to teach y'all the Parisian accent because that's what I have to offer, but it's not the only accent out there, all right? And one thing that's really important is in American English, we kind of let our mouths just hang open, all right? We kind of let our jaws hang open. So in British English, for example, they're gonna close their mouths a little bit more and that's how you get that good British accent. Not that I can do a good British accent. But in French, it's really important to use those mouth muscles and it really steps your game up. So the difference between bonjour, bonjour, and bonjour is all in the mouth. It's all in the mouth. So if you are ready to make that shape with your mouth and work those mouth muscles, that'll really pay off. So bonjour, for that OU, you want to make an O with your mouth. It feels kind of silly, but if you do it, it'll really help, I promise. So bonjour, so OU. Same thing with comment t'appelles-tu, except instead of making an O shape, we're going to make kind of kissy face. Okay, we're going to put our lips forward, tu, tu. And I want you all to practice that at home a little bit. Tu. And if you don't think about doing that, you're going to say, comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? And it's going to be very American. But what we want to do is we want to try to imitate that French accent and really try to get that sharp sound so that people know what we're saying. So, tu. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment t'appelles-tu? And if you really pull your lips forward, it really goes a long way to helping that pronunciation. All right, rant over. Let's practice ça va? Ça va? Ça va? Ça va? And again, you can have a whole conversation with that. Ça va? Ça va? Ça va? Ça va? And then when we say goodbye, I forgot to go over this yesterday. Some of y'all remembered, but you could say salut to say goodbye. Salut. Or ciao. If you want to be really hip and Italian, you want to sound very, very Italian, you can say ciao. Ciao. Or if you wanted to be a little bit more formal, you could say au revoir. Au revoir. Au revoir. And you'll notice I almost swallow that first r, right? So you could pronounce it au revoir or au revoir. And au revoir actually is a truncation. It's a diminutive version of au plaisir de vous revoir. Au plaisir de vous revoir, cher monsieur. Until I have the pleasure of seeing you again, is literally what that means. Okay, so it's kind of a shrunken version of that. Au revoir, au plaisir de vous revoir. Until I have the pleasure of seeing you again. Au revoir. Okay. So let's practice that. So I'm going to go ahead and send y'all into breakout rooms. And okay, bien, bravo. So we'll try to get a little bit more practice in like that, right? Where you're in breakout rooms and practicing a lot. I didn't do that as much last quarter as I would have liked, so I'm going to try to step that up because y'all need that practice. It's important. So well done. Super. I was going to talk about se décrire, but we'll save that for tomorrow. I wanted to talk to you all about La Fête de l'Armistice. So for those of you who finished the survey a little early, what is l'Armistice? It's a really big holiday in France. It's a lot bigger in France than it is here in the US. Was anybody able to learn anything about l'Armistice?
It's related to like stopping some like fighting or like warfare in an area like France, right?
Yeah, so an armistice is basically any time two countries decide to stop fighting.
Wasn't it for World War I?
And it's from World War I, exactly. Yeah. So armistice in general is any time two countries decide, all right, like neither of us have won, we're just gonna stop fighting. We're gonna agree to stop. But this, l'armistice, la fête de l'armistice, celebrates the end of World War I. And we think about it as World War I today, but do you know what they called it back in the day? It's okay if you don't.
The Great War.
They called it the Great War. Yeah, good job. Good job. They thought it was the war to end all wars. They thought, okay, this is horrible. This is terrible. So many people have died. So many people have suffered. There cannot be any more wars after this. We just can't. Unfortunately, we know that wasn't the case, right? We had World War II. We've had wars since, but it was devastating. Okay, so it's a special holiday in France because France and it's kind of France, Great Britain, and Germany were kind of at the heart of the conflict. There are other countries involved like Turkey and Italy and such. The US was involved too. What I've got here is a video, and you can access it in our class if you want. If you go to our class, you can go to modules, and then down here, unit 0.1, all right, right here is this slideshow right here. So you can watch this video. I included another video too, but this is basically a 10-year-old in France asking a question and they're answering it. What is l'armistice? And they talk about the history of it a little bit, but one thing I wanted to tell you is just like, this was a really devastating war and it totally changed the way Western Europe worked afterwards because so many people died. So many young boys and men died, right? And that completely changed, you know, somebody said it was the lost generation. I don't know that much about it. My history is not that great, but this was devastating. And so when the war was over, people were just like celebrating, right? And so this is the celebration, but it's kind of weighed down by the fact that there were so many people who died, especially young boys and men. And if y'all think about it, like, all right, so this is a big deal in France. This is a big national holiday in France. Today it's Veterans Day in the US. And if you think about it, you know, as soon as we're done with the pandemic, it's probably going to be kind of similar where we're going to be really relieved. People are going to be out in the streets. People are going to be thrilled. You know, I'm sure y'all can't wait to be back in classrooms again. I only say that half joking. I'm sure some of y'all really do want to be back in classrooms. Some of y'all are like, school, whatever. But we're going to be, you know, it's going to be a big party in the streets, but at the same time, so many people have suffered, so many people have died. And so it's still going to be kind of heavy. So yeah, so today is a day of reflection in France, a day of celebration and reflection. La Fête de l'Armistice. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, if you like history, if you're curious about that, there are 2 really interesting videos animated included in the slideshow.
À quoi ça sert?
I will see you tomorrow. À demain. And I'll stick around to answer questions if there are questions.
Thank you.